Yes, good afternoon. It's lunchtime here on Leicester Fan TV. My name's Phil. Welcome to the show. Yesterday, we had Dean Hammond on with us, which was an excellent chat. If you haven't seen that, do go and watch it. The replays are on the website and on our YouTube channel. We are live streaming on Facebook and YouTube and Periscope and Twitter and everywhere. So today we are very, very lucky. We are joined by Simon Grayson, ex-Leicester City. I'm sure you all know Simon Grayson. Get your questions into him. He'll be joining us just in a couple of minutes. This is your Leicester Fan TV lunchtime show. Yes, as ever, people watching, and I can get your comments on screen as ever. Stephen Malt is there watching. Hi, Stephen. How are you? Reese, what would you like to ask Simon Grayson? Get your questions in. Stephen Payne, good afternoon to you. Matty Bond as well is watching to you as well. Liam Price has already got his first question in there. He says, what was your best moment, Simon, as a player? We'll certainly be asking that, Simon. But to introduce him, let's bring in Jamie from the Foxes. How are you, Jamie?
Afternoon. How the devil is everyone? I'm good, thank you, Phil. Hope you're all well.
Very good indeed. Come on then, Jamie. Let's introduce Simon Grayson. He doesn't need much introduction.
Doesn't really need much introduction at all, does it? It's Simon Grayson. I don't think he'll mind. He always used to be called Larry Grayson at the club when he was here. He came from Leeds in March of '92. He was here for 5 years. He left in June of '97. He played 229 games and scored 6 goals. He was the first captain to lift a trophy at Wembley for Leicester in the playoff final. He played 10 out of the 12 games in the playoffs in the 90s. I think we were all at Wembley. I think most of us were at Wembley for them 4 games. And he played in both the games against Borough in the League Cup final and got a winner's medal out of it. So I think we ought to bring him in and start asking him a few questions.
Here he is.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Simon. How are you?
All good, thank you.
Keeping safe, Simon, I hope, in lockdown?
Yeah, trying to keep busy, bit of exercise, plenty of podcasts from different clubs that I've played for, managed. Yeah, just trying to stay safe and make sure that we all get through this crazy time and as many people can be safe and sound as possible.
Fantastic. Jamie, do you want to kick us off with your first question?
The first question I'm going to ask is, how did Brian Little actually sell the club to you? When you're at Leeds, what did he say to you? Like, say, come on, Simon, you come and play for Leicester.
He didn't really have to do anything like that because I was basically in around the first team at Leeds without really playing too much. And there'd been talk about me coming to Leicester for 2 or 3 months. John Gregory, who was Brian's assistant, first team coach, was good friends with Bobby Davison, who I was at Leeds with. And he kept on always talking to him, saying, look, we want to sign Simon. We've just got to try and get the right time to do it. And then eventually it came round. I was subbed for Leeds on a Tuesday night at QPR. Next day, packing my bags, driving down the M1 to Leicester. So I didn't need any selling points whatsoever. I didn't care how much I was earning or doing this. Basically said, you're going to come and contribute to a fantastic football club and get your career going, because that's all I needed to do. I needed to start playing first team football. And then as it happened, 12 games later, after leaving Leeds to come to Leicester, we're in a playoff final or something like that.
So, I mean, Leeds is obviously close, very, very close to your heart, Simon, being, I believe it's your boyhood club, isn't it? And obviously you played for them, managed them, but yet Leicester was a big temptation.
Oh, without a shadow of doubt. As you said there, for Leeds, it is my boyhood club and everything like that. But I had to think about the bigger picture and wanted to make a living in the game. I made my debut when I was 17 for Leeds and only played 3 or 4 more times since. Look, back in them days, it was 1 and 2 subs, not like today. But ultimately, I needed to play football. And Leicester was a perfect fit for me, basically, a division below. But ultimately, we're in the round of playoffs, ready to try and get back into the top division. And I knew Brian quite well anyway, because when I was playing in the youth team at Leeds, Brian was the youth team coach at Middlesbrough, and he kept an eye on all of us at that time. I think our youth team had myself, David Batty, Gary Speed, and 1 or 2 others. So that was always his point of view, was that he'd watched us a lot in the youth team and the reserves to to realise that when we were ready to sign.
Jamie?
You say about the contract. You say about the contract talks was pretty easy. With you being a manager now and the contracts, then is it a huge difference in how they sign players back then to what it is now? Is it more agents now than it is just yourself?
Well, put it like this: there's a lot more difference in terms of the numbers that are going around. It wasn't anywhere near the level. I think you can probably knock a couple of zeros off the end of it, maybe more. But basically, it was about playing football. My agent probably did the deal just over the phone. To be fair, he's probably spoke to Brian that way. Now, like you said, you're dealing with head of recruitment, chief executives, sporting directors. It's a lot more intense in terms of signing players. But as I said before, it wasn't about any contract length, money. It was about getting first team football and making a career in the game. But the line now of getting players is so much longer and time consuming, really. And that's why, as a manager, as I've been for 15 years, it was good to move that onto somebody else because I'm not really bothered about that side of it.
There was a question. There was a go on. There was a question
Jamie.
earlier. Have you ever had a chance to manage Leicester, and would you do so if you ever got the chance?
Well, I'd certainly do it now, but
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure Brendan's not going to be leaving anytime soon, so we'll just put that one to bed already. There was a bit of a talk when I was at Leeds at the time, and I can't remember who maybe left the club on a couple of occasions about maybe going back to go back as the manager, but nothing came as a point of, do you want this job, if you were given it or anything like that. And ultimately as well, I was at Leeds managing there where I was really enjoying it. I really thought I could take Leeds to the Premier League, and it would have been my dream to have done that. And secondary would have been to ever become the manager of Leicester, because I've loved my time there as a player. I'd had a lot of contacts and close friends down there. So if that opportunity had ever come along and I hadn't been at Leeds, then I certainly would have taken that opportunity.
There's still time, Simon. Trust me, every time the manager's job, there's been a lot in the last 10 or 12 years at Leicester. Come and go. And your name has been mentioned by fans many times as like, well, let's get somebody in who knows the club. So who knows in the future if it might happen.
Maybe an assistant manager's role or something like that. I'm easing down a little bit now. I'm in my 50s. I'm ready for retiring.
We've just brought Tom in. Tom, welcome to the show. What would you like to ask Simon?
Simon, you got a lot of clubs promoted from League One, but I just want your opinion on how good that team Leicester had that got out of League One, and you were at the close end of it when Howard scored the winner in the game against Leeds. How good a team was that Leicester team in that League One title for us?
In terms of when we were in League One, I was managing, or the team that I played in?
Terms of when you were managing for Leeds United versus Leicester.
Oh, right, yeah. Right. Look, my first game as manager for Leeds was against Leicester at Ellen Road, and it was an unbelievable experience. One, going back to the club as a manager, but ultimately against my former club that I'd played for over 5 years. And they were a strong, powerful, well-organised, well-drilled team, had goals in them. Steve Howard was obviously the main man up front. People like Lloyd Dyer, Paddy Kisnorbo will have probably been playing around that time, maybe. I'm just trying to think some other players. But
Matty Fryer, was he there?
Yes, he'll have been around at the time. But it was. I think when any manager goes into Leicester, they realise what type of team that they have to put together. I think the fans love a team that will run through a brick wall for the football club and the shirt that they're putting on every week. But also they want to have one or two players that can really entertain, score goals. So if you can get the mixture right over the years, then you've got a great opportunity to be successful. And I think that's where you've seen the real successful teams that have got promotion, even winning Premier League titles, have had the mix of being a real steel about them, but also got some flair players as well.
Simon, you played in, I'm old enough to remember the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, right up to winning the Premier League. You played in a period for Leicester, which I would say is equal top with Leicester winning the Premier League in my books. The run of the playoffs and the cup win. I don't even know where to start and ask you about the playoffs. If we just take the playoffs, which one of those? Because you played out 3 out of the 4 of them, I believe, if my memory's right. Which one stands out the most for you out of the playoffs?
Well,
and
it's
why?
got to be the Derby. Yeah, there's got to be the Derby one, really. The Blackburn one was, like I said, 12, 13 games later from playing in Leeds reserves and playing in the playoff final. But that one sort of passed me by. David Speedy, obviously, got a dubious penalty in that first game.
He dived, Simon.
Don't say no more. Don't say no more.
It was a dive.
Yeah.
We all know it.
Scroll on now. Forget that one.
Yeah, then we signed him as well, didn't we?
We did, yes.
The second one I wasn't involved in, but it was a remarkable game. And I started on telly the other day where we were 3-0 down and 3-3 and then lost 4-3. But
why were you not in that one, Simon, just out of interest? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think I've been injured, but I'm in around the squad. So it was just one of them occasions. I was subbing the semi-final against Portsmouth. And then we could only have 2 subs, and Brian obviously chose somebody else. So it's just one of them things. But the third one, obviously against Derby, was basically they were the real strong favourites for that.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of money on Gabardini, Johnson, Shaw, and people like that. And we were sort of the underdogs without a shadow of doubt. And we were to lead a team out at Wembley like I did on that particular day was very special moment, and it was strange how it came about, really, that Walshy had the captaincy taken off him because of a few should we say a few
red cards,
red cards possibly.
Yeah.
So he'd had that taken off him, and then I think Millsy was the next captain, but he was injured and didn't play. So then it was really sort of myself and Steve Agnew, and Steve Agnew was sub on the day, and I was left to start and lead the team out, and then. They were stronger than us, and I always remember that game that I could have got sent off after about 60 minutes. I brought Tommy Johnson down, who's clean through, and Roger Milford, the referee at the time, gave me a yellow card, and I was delighted. This day and age, I'd have been sent off without a shadow of doubt. There was no question of that. I was definitely last man, but then you go and I've set up the second goal for Ian Ormeride, should have scored with a header, and then Walshy stabs it in and has made a fortune out of that photograph. I don't think there's anybody in Leicester that's not got a picture of Walshy.
I've got it.
Yeah,
I think I've got it somewhere as well, actually.
Got it. Yeah, and then to walk up the stairs was a fantastic feeling, very proud moment for my family, but for myself. And I've gotten a regret on that day that going up the stairs, a Leicester fan gave me a beanie hat to put on, and I lifted the trophy. The first captain to lift the trophy for Leicester at Wembley has got a stupid beanie hat on, so I've still got all the pictures.
Simon, listen, they were the best hats Leicester have ever had. Those beanie hats. I had one. We all were wearing them back in the 90s.
I don't mind that, but now when I look at them, it's like a bit strange to still be having that.
You lifted that trophy for us. That's all that matters. That's all that counted. Didn't matter what you look like. You lifted that trophy.
No, exactly. It was a very proud moment, and it was a lot of hard work, because to have suffered the disappointment of the 2 years previously of losing in them finals was tough to take. Not just for players, but for the supporters who had spent a lot of money, gone through a lot of turmoil of suffering, of disappointment, because you go there third time and everybody's like, oh, not this isn't going to be again. But it was just a remarkable period, wasn't it? That it was 3 years on the trot, and then you go to the Premier League and we get relegated. We weren't good enough to be around it. We didn't have the money to invest, and then the following year we go to another playoff final again, didn't we?
Yeah, the Palace one, which again was another sensational game, Simon. These are the games that Leicester fans of our era just honestly talk about almost daily. The Crystal Palace one, what did you think when Spider Callett came on at the end of the game then?
Well, has Martin been drinking? What did he do? It was like we were all quite stunned, and I think when I speak to some of the Palace lads from that day, I think it affected them more than it did us, because they're seeing this substitution of Pooley going off, I think it was, and Spider coming on, who's 6'5", and everyone's going, I've never seen a manager make that sort of decision probably before or certainly afterwards. And you could call it a stroke of genius, because he was obviously thinking that it was going to go into the penalty shootout and having somebody a lot taller than Pooley. But then all of a sudden, like, people were distracted, and then Claridge has hit a shinner that has flown in the top corner.
He's lived off that shinner.
He hasn't.
And he still claims that he's hit it sweetly. Well, knowing how he used to finish, then he can probably say that it was a decent hit.
Yeah, he certainly changed his tune on that, hasn't he? He does now class it. He says he wishes he'd never called it a shinner. But listen, that moment did. Wembley famously stood still for a second when it hit the back of the net. As fans, we were all just stunned and lost the plot of it. But Tom, can I bring you back in with another question for Simon?
Yeah, I was going to say, so you had your playing career, and it was a fantastic playing career for Leicester, and you won some trophies, everything. What made you go down the line of becoming a coach and a manager? What did you know that was something you wanted to go into from being the playing days, or was it something that happened after?
I think it's like any player, you're getting sort of, how old was I? Probably 30, knowing that you've got probably 5-6 years left as playing. You all start then doing your badges, and it's then, do you feel comfortable in what you're doing? And I was playing at Blackpool in the first team. Then got the opportunity to stay on and still play, but take the reserves at the same time. So it was a nice progression for me to learn my trade a little bit. As I said, doing all my badges, and then it came to a point. I think I was 35 and got offered a job as a first team coach with a friend. And I thought I was ready for packing in. I was ready to see if I could go down the line of being a coach. Went to see Colin Hendry, who was a manager at the time. Told him what I wanted to do. And he said, look, it's fine with me. Just go and see Carl Oyston. So I went to see Carl Oyston, who was the owner at the time. Told him exactly what I was wanting to do, thinking they'd just say yes. And he said no. And I said, Carl, why? He says, well, I'm sacking Colin Hendry and you're taking over as caretaker manager. And so I always thought it was going to be a progression of being a first team coach assistant and then just see where it took me as a manager. But ultimately, I got thrown into the job very quickly. And then it was about, do I sink or swim? Do I want to do this? Do I want to not do this? But I felt very quickly that I was quite comfortable in what I was looking to do. I got plenty of experience around me in terms of Tony Parks, ex-Blackburn manager, coach, came as my assistant and helped me along the way. So it was, one day I'm in a dressing room with teammates who were good friends of mine, and the next day I'm probably dropping them for the next game. End of that season, not extending contracts, but I knew I had to be ruthless if I wanted to succeed.
Yeah. Jamie?
I mean, on that point about being at Blackpool, Ross has asked a question. What was it like working under Oyston at Blackpool? Was it difficult as what it looked like from the outside?
I think back then I had an experience of being seen things as a player and as a reserve team coach through different managers. So I'd see what they were all going through, and I got to understand, and I knew how Carl worked over the years of being there. The 3 years I was there playing, that I knew that he'd like to sort of win a war as such in terms of when you're going to ask for things. So I knew if I wanted if I wanted 3 things, I would ask for 10. Because then I'd get the 3 things as I walked out of a meeting. Carl got the 7 more that he thought he'd won the war, when really I'd got the stuff that I wanted. And I wasn't bothered about the 7. So it was all about understanding of him. But the one thing that I did look at Carl was, he'd give me my opportunity to start with, and he never interfered into football. And that's why he was good to a certain point. He just let you get on. He didn't sort of want it to know why you're doing this, why you're doing that, which is quite the norm at this moment in time with football, that people like to know reasons, have a little bit of an input, potentially try and pick your teams and stuff like that. But Carl was good in that respect. Of course, he wasn't held in great light towards the end of his years because of... Hey up.
Sorry, that's
Jamie's phone texting.
Sorry about that. Carry on. No, sorry.
But then at the back end of his time there, he wasn't investing money, and it all went a little bit pear-shaped in terms of the relationship that he had with the supporters. And ultimately, they left and a new one came in. But to be fair, I can't fault him too much, because he gave me my opportunity to be managing still now 15 years later. Simon,
just pulling it back, a few people have been asking, what's what was the difference between playoff finals and then the League Cup final? Was it a different experience as a player? I always felt as a fan, there was more pressure on the playoff finals because the whole of the rest of the next 12 months of our spectating was relying on this playoff final. And I enjoyed the League Cup finals a little more. What was it like as a player?
Yeah, I would say the same because you'd worked so hard. It's like when people ask me what are the best moments I've had in my career as a manager. I always say, like when people talk about we beat Manchester United at Old Trafford when I was Leeds manager, but getting promotion over the course of a season is something that you've set out in pre-season to achieve, and that's what we're trying to do. And that, as a player, when we're at Leicester, the previous 2 years was massive disappointment for everybody. So I think the playoffs had more significance because it was going to define where you're going to be for the next year or so, and you could take things from there really. And you look at the League Cup final. We were playing against a good team in Middlesbrough, but we had some good players. We had more talented players than people give us credit for at that time. But it was really sort of the early rounds of the League Cup was mix and match the teams, and then once we got to the latter stages, then it was all about, well, something, we could actually get to the final and maybe win this competition.
You didn't score many goals, Simon, but somebody's reminded us of your Coca-Cola League Cup semi-final goal. Pleased with that one?
I might just be able to remember that one as well. Yeah.
Go on, talk us through it then.
Well, I was playing left back at the time because Gups was cup tied. I was playing left wing back or left back. I can't remember if we played 4 or 3 to be fair at the time, but I don't know how I ended up in the box because I used to just stay back on most of the set pieces, but somehow I must have ended up there and got a free kick, and I was on my way back and probably didn't get back in time. I thought, I might as well stay up for this free kick. And Parks could always put things into a good area, and we were a strong, powerful team in terms of aerially, Walshy and people like that could go and attack it. And I just remember it was flying over the top end, over most people, and I just timed my run quite well, to be fair, and shut my eyes, headed it over Neil Sullivan, and it's at the back of the net. And it sort of, it was weird. It took a few minutes for me to actually realise that I'd actually scored a goal, turned away to celebrate, and everybody thought I'd just done the Klinsmann, but I didn't. I just fell to my knees because I had no energy left in me.
I think, was it a 1-1 draw and we went through on away goals?
Yeah, and I always remember Claridge, and this is how strikers think, right? Claridge said to me, he says, you need it to finish 1-1 because you're going to get all the headlines tomorrow. You don't need it to be 2-1 because somebody's going to take the glory away from you. And this is during the game. Claridge is telling me, we'll just take the draw and you're going to get all the credit for this. And I'm like, well, if I'll take that if it means us getting through. But that was just the not selfishness, but how strikers thought.
Well, he's sort of right because 23 years later, we are talking about it. So.
Yeah, no, I'm quite happy for it to finish 1-1. Don't worry about that.
Tom, can I bring you back in?
Oh, go on.
Yeah. Who was the best player you played with at Leicester, and who was the joke of the dressing room?
I think what we tried to do when we're in the spells, especially the good spell of that Premier League spell, and the promotion the year before, we were a tight group, which we were right the way through that period. We all socialised together. We all stuck together on the pitch when things were going off in tunnels and that. We were all there for each other, looking after each other. But I think you can look at different types of players. The more talented ones, like Muzzy was a fantastic technician, talented player. Lennon would dominate a midfield. But I think over the period of time, somebody who played with a lot of times together was Walshy. Obviously would dominate both boxes, run through a brick wall, suffered a lot of injuries, but could finish chances as well, because remember that sort of the Derby playoff final leading up to that, he went to play centre forward and scored a lot of goals, which allowed us to get to the final. So Walshy's up there, but then you've got the raw talent of Julian Joachim, was a fantastic young player when he came through. Emil obviously was 18, 19 when he burst on the scenes. And look, there's going to be a couple of players. Gups could put a cross on a sixpence as well, and other lads as well. So I'm going to probably miss a few. But I think if you was to say through the whole period of me being at Leicester, I think Walshy would be somebody that you would say, right, he would do anything for you, but could play as well.
So who was a nightmare in the dressing room, Simon, as in playing jokes and...
To be fair, Parks was a bit lively.
Yeah.
He was how he became an assistant manager with Lennon at Celtic, I'll never know. Because Parks hadn't got any seriousness in him. He would just do stupid things that I remember we would, like, on a Tuesday once, we went out on an afternoon drinking, which we did in them days, but we trained hard and worked hard as well and played hard.
Yeah.
And we remember going out in the afternoon and we went to, I think, Crystal's on a Tuesday night, and Parks all of a sudden said, "Watch this," and we're all like stood watching him, and he went and did a Klinsmann across the dance floor, took about 20 people out and just got up and walked off. And it was like that was, and it just different things. He had a real dry sense of humour, but he was very cutting with stuff as well. He could put people down without a shadow of doubt. But great lad to have around the place and a real talented player.
Yeah, he was a great player. Simon, have you seen him with his massive beard recently?
Yeah.
Going on there.
At a game not so long ago. Yeah, well, that's just part, isn't it?
I bet you don't give him no stick about it.
Well, no, I can't do, because what he'll do, he says, "I'll shave it off, and you can put it on top of your head, can't you?"
Jamie?
I was going to ask one. It's just literally at the start of your career, when you started at Leicester, you had the old members stand at Filbert Street, and then a couple of years later, you had the Carling stand was built. Did that make a big difference on the way the pitch performed or the way that you played, because there was a bit more of an atmosphere or less of an atmosphere with the Carling stand?
Well, it was always strange, wasn't it? Because of sort of how the old ground was, as Filbert Street was originally when I first went there. It was unique, but it was also great because people were quite close on top of you. You know what I mean? Remember playing Newcastle last game of the season when Newcastle needed to win to stay up, and I think it was under Kevin Keegan, and I was taking a throw in on the other side. The far side where the away supporters were, and I think you used to have to go through somebody's back door to get into that side of the ground.
Yes, you did.
Yes,
you did.
Yes, you did. Yeah,
literally.
And I always remember thinking, with 2 minutes to go over that side, Newcastle fans are running up and down. They didn't want the scoreline to change, and I'm like thinking, I need to get off this pitch pretty sharpish because these lot are going to be running on. So. We got thrown in the last minute right in front of them, and I just said to Jimmy Willis, I think was playing right centre back, I said, "Look, you've got a longer throw than me. You take this throw and stick it down the line, and I'll go to centre back." Well, Jimmy didn't realise that as soon as he threw it, the whistle went. I was running down the tunnel, and all the Newcastle fans were running on, and he was stuck amongst them. The Carling stand was obviously the start of the club developing, but it did sort of have that real old feel to it, didn't it? And obviously now you've got the King Power is a completely different level, and if the stadium gets developed, it's going to go to a different level completely, isn't it?
Simon, we've pretty much got to wrap up now. I've just got one last question. It's a question we've been asking a lot of players, and it affects Leicester and it affects Leeds, obviously one of your ex-clubs, and football in general. How do you think the season should be wrapped up? Obviously, safety in mind for spectators, players, and everybody. But how would you like to see it wrapped up to a conclusion?
Well, like you said, it's got to be the health and safety of everybody that matters first and foremost. But ultimately, I think the season should finish, no matter how it happens. Yes, there's going to be complications with it, but why not deal with next season when it comes around? There's going to be too many issues with people, promotions, relegations, European places. And if you end it and there's so much uncertainty left around, then there's going to be court cases, there's going to be this, there's going to be that. So let's do whatever we can to do to finish the season. And next season can take care of itself. Get rid of the League Cup or something like that. Add an extra weeks into the programme.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like I've been saying, most people have said as long as it's all health, as long as it's down to the health side of it first, that's all that matters, really, isn't it? And next season can wait until next season starts.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic, Simon. Hopefully, do you think? We'd like to see you in a managerial role somewhere, whether it's wherever it is. Do you think that's on the card still going forward? Is that the dream?
Yeah. Look, I've done nearly 700 games as a manager, and maybe it'd be fantastic if I can get to 1,000, which would be sort of some doing. It's got a few more years to do that. So yeah, I've still got the drive, the ambition to be a manager still, and the last couple of jobs haven't quite worked out, but that's through different reasons. I've got 4 promotions and been successful. So yeah, I've still got the hunger and desire to do it at whatever level, whether it's home or abroad. Wait and see, but of course I've got fire in my belly still, because it's a game. Football's all I know. I've done it since I was 16, so 34 years now, with over 500 games as a player, nearly 700 as a manager. I'm not sure what else I can do, to be fair.
Well, it's been brilliant. Thanks again for joining us, Simon.
Cheers, Simon. Thank you, much appreciated.
Cheers. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you. Good luck in the future, Simon, and it's been an absolute pleasure and an honour to speak with you. Cheers.
It has. Cheers, Simon. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Another good one, Phil. Another good chat.
Again, another big hero, because I know a lot of people will say like the Premier League is like the ultimate, which it is, but for me that period back then in the 90s is just, I would say probably my favourite game ever is the 94 playoff final. It just had everything,
against Derby.
Including the fact that it was Derby. The 96 one was amazing. Winning the League Cup was great, but 94, that Silence of the Lambs, I think
the 94 one was the build-up, wasn't it? You had the Blackburn, then you had Swindon 2 years previously, and then the Derby one. It built up to be really big, didn't it? Unfortunately, it was the relegation in between, but it just, I mean, the Derby one is one you really talk about a lot, because it was against Derby.
Yeah, it's against a rival. They were the bigger team at the time, the better players. Nobody, I don't think, quite expected us to do it. Just a sensational period of Leicester's history. So fantastic. Thanks, Jamie, again for sorting that one out.
I tell you what, Phil, I love having these players on. I think it's fantastic. Just to come and give us a half hour of the time, it's absolutely fantastic.
We're very lucky. Thanks for joining us, Jamie. I'll wrap up now. So
see you later.
Thanks to Jamie, thanks to Tom, thanks of course to Simon Grayson for giving us his views on everything to do with Leicester City and managering. Thanks for all your comments. We've tried to get as many questions in to Simon as possible. Don't forget, go and follow us. We're Leicester Fan TV which is on Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. We're on there, even on LinkedIn for those of you in the business world. So thanks. Go and follow us there, like and share the videos. And thanks, of course, to the guys who help bring us all this tech. And you know who they are, so go and support them. My name's Phil. This has been a Leicester Fan TV lunchtime special. We'll see you tomorrow when we have got Paul Konchesky on with us. So keep tuned and keep watching Leicester Fan TV. Cheers.